you are listening to the Kinetic Man Podcast. I'm Stuart.
And I'm David, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living a life defined by uncommon action that is full of purpose, adventure, and meaningful relationships. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours, and together achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to leave the potential life behind and become kinetic men.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Stu, and before we start this episode, I wanted to give you a heads up. This topic is sensitive, and if you are listening to this in the car with on speakers, and you have little ones in the car, you have little ears, might be worth stopping and waiting until you can put your headphones in and to listen to it. However, it is an important conversation. It's a hard conversation. It's one that we have a lot in the Kinetic Man because it's a real challenge for men specifically. But women can play a big role in this. We talk about that in this episode, and it's an important one. So go listen. Enjoy the show. See ya. All right, here we go. Back at podcast recording. Just got back from spring break. David, you got back from spring break too. We both did road trips. How did it go for you?
I had a great, so coming back was very interesting. Going out was interesting because we had a ton of snow, and I drove to San Diego, Michael, for context. We drive a lot in our family, so we typically go 16 hours west for spring break to San Diego, and summertime we go 16 hours east to Wisconsin in the summertime. So my kids are very used to long drives. Anyways, rough weather going out, a little nervous. Dude, on the way back, beautiful roads. I drove all the way through on the way back. I get into Colorado, a little past Glenwood, and the roads turn into straight like dog poo, dude. It's terrible. It's about 3 a.m. And then I get waved off the freeway, off the 70 and at Dillon, and they closed it from there to the tunnel. And I guess so I go to the cop. I'm like, it's 3 a.m, dude. I'm like, hey, I just really want to get home. Do you have any insight? And they're like, dude, someone drove off the road up there. I'm like, I don't know.
Yikes.
And I was like, all right, I'll try the pass. So I went the pass. And I'll tell you why, what happened was interesting. I think a lot of this is the kinetic man, to be completely honest, to think before you speak and act. And I was like, gosh, dang it, dude. Like, I just want to get home. I got to now drive the pass. The pass was scary. Loveland Pass. There's tons of snow, 3 a.m. I can't see. Like, it's crazy. But I was like, you know what, though? I'm not the dude that drove off the freeway with my kids in the back. Like, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
So by the grace of God, but it was all that to say it was an adventure. Just the last hour was like the most treacherous. I could see my house, and I was just like, dude, Lord, let me make it home. Let me make it home. It was crazy. It's crazy. But San Diego's beautiful. Awesome experience, as always.
It's long road trips, man. Long road trips
Dude,
are there's always room for adventure. Dude, has this ever happened to you? Michael, has this ever happened to you? I was pumping gas, like insert the pump into the gas tank, pumping gas, and the line fell off. Like the line that connects to like the tank literally fell off the like connection, and like gas started like spewing down the line, like all over me, all over my like leg and foot, shoe. Like,
is this
everything.
a true story? Is this a
True
real story?
Real story. This happened to me in Arizona this weekend as I was driving back home. And like,
what do you do? Do you like go in and tell
Yeah.
the gas station?
Yeah. I was like, I stunk, like gas. I had to go change clothes in the gas station to like get all my, gas smelling clothes so we wouldn't drive home, for the next 6 hours smelling like gas. But yeah, they're like, oh, they acted like it's happened
gas,
before.
right? So she said smelling like gas.
Gas.
With a G. Yeah, thank you. Okay. I just want to clarify for our audience.
Did you hear something else? Yeah, so crazy, man. Like that.
That's wild. We haven't had spring break yet, but next week we're going. My parents live in Arkansas, and they live right smack dab where the big solar eclipse is going to be. And like,
Nice.
I think it's called like full occlusion, I think is the term that it says,
Yeah.
right? The big show. And so we got an RV, we rented an RV. We're driving like 24 hours,
Nice.
3 kids under 5 to Arkansas.
Buddy.
So I think,
Good luck, man. Good
yeah,
luck.
we're a little,
God bless you.
we're a little
God bless
scared,
you.
man.
I'll tell you
Yeah.
what, though, man, I started my kids super young, like from day, whatever, on these long trips, and they get used to it. They're pretty I mean, the difference when they're young is you're gonna have to stop and kids poop their pants and it's gonna be all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
but all good. I'll tell you, game saver for us, we had it for years. Get one of those little potties and you can just set out in the street, dude. We use those
Oh.
like I mean, I was using that on this. I'm just kidding. We don't use that anymore. But game changer, dude. Game changer. It changes it makes everything better when we got that because the kids, if you're potty trained, they're like, dude, I want to stop now. And you're like,
Yeah.
and it's never
Yeah.
pee.
It's
So
never
just
pee.
just a friendly tip, dude. Just a friendly tip.
No, that's
Game
really
changer.
good. That's really good.
Yeah.
We'll take all the tips, man, because this will be by far the longest trip we've ever taken with a
Yeah.
kid, and we're scared, dude. We'll take tips, we'll take prayers,
Nice.
whichever
We'll
one
do
you
both.
got. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let's segue that into
Yeah.
let's segue that into who you are and what you do and really and I think it's a great segue because one of the things we're going to talk about is how to be a better dad, how to be a better husband, right? And things that we're super passionate about, but also in the context, another thing you're passionate about is helping men overcome porn and how all this stuff is related. And I
Yeah.
really am excited about this conversation because I love your website, I love your webinar, super informative, love what you do. So tell us about yourself, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. So I'm by training, I'm actually a marriage and family therapist. And I loved it. I worked a lot with couples very early on in my therapy experience, and Um, one day I had a guy come in and say, "Hey, my marriage is really struggling, and I've been viewing porn for, I think it was over 10 years." Um, he was in his mid 20s or something like that, and he's like, "Can you help me?" And I I'd said yes. I never really known. I never really knew what to do, like working with porn. I never worked with it before in the therapy setting, and so I started working with him, and I kind of fell in love with helping men do this because he had this experience where he came in with like so much shame, like he just hated himself because of it, and we went through this experience. Honestly, it was a lot of we were kind of doing this together. I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I help people with this? And the experience of him, I remember him saying once, he's like, "Man, I actually like myself." You know, like after a few months of working together and realized his life isn't defined by his porn use and just realized that I think there's just a lot of men and women who are struggling with this who really have a lot of shame with it and want it to be a secret and feel like there's something wrong with them. And it kind of sent me on a journey of learning about, okay, how do you actually help move on from this for good, right? And it's been a really rewarding journey, man, as I've been diving in.
Well, yeah, man, and I love, one of the things is that is right up front on your both your webinar and your site is that we're doing it wrong, right? Like,
Yeah,
and you highlight some things. You say willpower, more willpower, the
yeah,
accountability, the content
yeah,
blockers and all these
yeah,
things. And
yeah,
and then you go into three keys to overcoming porn, right? And I'm just curious, if you don't mind, kind of give us just an overview of how the ways that we're failing at addressing this. And I say failing, it's not again to add more shame. It's just they're ineffective, right? We
yeah,
want
yeah, yeah,
tactical, real tools to help us move forward from things that are significant struggles in life. And so some of the things we're doing are not working. And for some people they might, but overall they're not working. And then you
yeah.
highlight three different ways that actually are proven to work. So if you don't mind touching on that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love how you put that. We're just moving in the wrong direction. It's just not working, right? It's not that we're necessarily doing it wrong. It's just not effective. And um, the biggest thing to boil it down is we treat overcoming porn like it's a behavior change issue. Like we've got to, which on the surface sounds like, well, yeah, obviously it's behavior change. Like we're trying to change this behavior, right? But that's actually the wrong direction to go with it. It's not helpful. When we view pornography like it's all about behavior change, we end up doing these things that work really well for about 3 months of sobriety. Like if you just want to be off it for about 3 to 6 months, then the following strategies work great, right? It's willpower, white knuckling through it, downloading a bunch of content blockers, finding a buddy or a spouse to just be like your accountability partner, right? Like I viewed 3 times this week, or I only viewed once, right? Or things like that. Um, all these things where, you know, it's this mentality, and it's not, if someone's engaging in those strategies, I make it really clear, like it's not their fault at all. Like that's like the best we've got, right? That's like what everyone tells someone to do, right? The culture's really made this mentality of, in order to overcome porn, it's a battle. You have to fight, 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 right? You have to slay this dragon. You have to um adopt this really big battle mentality, but it's not effective for long-term change and growth. That's my own experience with working with clients. I started, so just to kind of bring that first question full circle, I started a coaching business specifically helping men overcome porn. Um, and working with my own clients, that doesn't help make long-term change. And research is showing more and more that willpower just isn't the way to really make long-term change in overcoming porn.
So what's the solution? Like what do your clients have they found that is successful that does get to that long-term solution?
Yeah, the first big principle is learning how to stop fighting with urges. There's a lot there we could talk about, but the key is understanding that so this part of us, I talk with clients, the way I kind of conceptualize with clients, right, is I ask them, like, do you want to quit porn? And they're like, yeah, I want to quit porn. That's why I'm literally seeing you right now, is to quit porn, right? And we talk about okay, great, there's a part of you that wants to quit porn. Are you willing to be open and honest with yourself, though, and understand that there's a part of you that doesn't want to quit porn, right? And we kind of talk, and they say, yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? Like, sure, I want to quit porn, but I've used it for years and years and years. Obviously, there's a part that doesn't want to give it up. And the key is, instead of battling that part of you that doesn't want to quit porn and like fighting it and shaming it and criticizing it, what if we actually got to know this part of you that doesn't want to quit porn and got to understand why it doesn't want to quit porn? Because I guarantee you there's a reason. And I guarantee you the reason is not that you're lazy. It's not that you're gross. It's not that you're evil. It's not that you're perverted. It's not that you're weak. Those are not the reasons why this part of you does not want to quit porn. And ironically, and sometimes this takes a minute for clients to really sink in and wrap their head around, this part of you actually has the best intentions. It's trying to help you. And the more you fight it and battle with it, the more it actually feels like it needs to dig its heels in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, man, totally makes sense. And I'm assuming that the industry that's in that business knows that, right? And
Yeah.
they're making every way possible to dig their heels in to push a man to continue further on. Yeah, so
Yeah.
like what does the inner work look like to kind of really figure that out?
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys have heard of internal family systems before. You ever
No.
heard that before? Internal family systems, or IFS is what we call it. It's a therapy approach that I use in my coaching. And what it does is it really dives into this idea of parts, right? Basically, what it says is the natural state of the brain is to actually be kind of subdivided into different parts, right? And we intuitively, that kind of makes sense. I don't know if you guys have ever had the experience, you're talking and you're like, man, a part of me really likes that guy, but a part of me just wants to punch him in the face, right? You're like, we kind of talk in parts language a lot, right? A
Like
part of me loves,
I feel that way with Stu often. Like I love Stu. I love him. He's my best friend, but I oftentimes find myself wanting to punch him right in the mouth.
yeah. And so, David, you gotta be curious for that part of you that wants to punch him in the mouth, right? Because it's there. And no, we all kidding aside, right? Like, there's a part of me that really loves to be healthy, and there's a part of me that loves to like eat ice cream late at night, right? Like we all have different parts of us that sometimes are in direct conflict with each other, and And internal family systems, or IFS, is a therapy approach that helps you get to know each of these parts of you. Because what IFS says is these parts all have jobs. All of our parts have jobs. Sometimes these parts their job is to protect and to help us, right? And the part so far as I work with clients virtually all the time, they're part of them that wants pornography is actually trying to help protect them from pain. Is actually help, and it's all internal pain, right? Feelings of inadequacy, feelings of weakness, feelings of loneliness, feelings of rejection, whatever it is. And so that's the work I do with clients is take them through a process where they actually like finally sit with these parts of them, get to know them, um, through mindfulness techniques, meditations, things like that, to finally hear the story that each of their parts have, right? And it's a pretty cool process. It's they go from like a bunch of self-hatred to like learning how to love these parts of themselves, and it's pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. I love that. And just for context for our listeners, you have a webinar that you offer out. You'll email it out if you sign up on your website, myempoweredplan.com, which is phenomenal. And in there, you give 3 keys to overcoming porn. I know each of these has great depth, but do you mind
Yeah.
just giving, naming those three and because I think just to just to have names for a process is really
Yeah.
powerful, right? Just like there's having names of like content blockers and willpower and accountability with your wife or whatever, like those have names. If you don't mind
Yeah.
giving the three keys, because I think that it was something that awakened something in me when I was listening to your webinar.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. So yeah, these 3 keys that I talk about. Um, re I'll just kind of go through three. I'll give kind of a bird's eye view of each of these 3 keys. If you have any follow-up questions for me, I'm happy to dive in. But the first key is you've gotta feel it to heal it, right? Essentially, right. Well, and this and the other another term I use for this is just getting to the root, right? We again, when we approach quitting pornography with this mindset of, okay, I'm not going to view for a week. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna muscle through this, right? When we go with that mentality, then all we're going to be focused on is not viewing porn, which on the surface sounds like, well, duh, that sounds like a great objective, right? But the real objective needs to be, okay, what's at the root of this? Why does this part of me feel like it needs porn? If I could get to the root and heal that, then I don't need to protect myself with porn anymore, right? It's like having a wound on your arm and all you're doing is changing bandages, right? But you're never actually treating the wound and helping the wound to heal, right? And so that first pillar is getting to the root, or sometimes I call it my clients, you gotta feel it to heal it, right? Meaning
Yeah,
you've
before you
got to,
move on,
yeah,
one thing I love about that, it just that really was impactful to me was the idea that what you're doing, when you take the focus and the shame off of the action itself and you go towards the root, it also removes some of the shame. Like it opens your
totally.
mind, it empowers you to, for me, like I'm very much about self-awareness. Like I love self-awareness, I love self-development. It takes this idea of shame and sin and all the bad things of porn, which I acknowledge are all true, but it takes the focus from that and it focuses on self-awareness, which is a very positive thing. It's a
Yeah.
very like, oh, I want to be more self-aware of what this is, right? And so for me, that was a hugely impactful part of your webinar because I was like, oh, dude, like my focus is on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's the same problem, it's the same issue, it's the same umbrella, it's the same desire and passion to move past this thing, but my approach is vastly different because now I'm working on self-awareness and personal development,
Yeah.
which is just a different perspective.
Dude, spot on. I tell my clients all the time, I'm like, dude, you're gonna find out that this work with me, overcoming porn, will have very little to do about porn. Because you take a guy, a guy who is viewing porn 2 or 3 times a week. And you get to the root of it and you realize this dude is incredibly lonely in his marriage and doesn't know how to communicate his needs to his wife. Doesn't know how to connect with his wife. And so let's say he chose years and years and years of, I gotta quit porn. Let me go a week, right? And so he's doing all the white knuckling things, but he's ignoring the fact that porn is just covering up the fact that there's deep loneliness and unfulfillment in his marriage. And so you get to the root of that. And now it's not even about porn. It's about how do we help you learn how to connect with your wife more powerfully, how to experience a more fulfilling marriage. You do that, and all of a sudden you outgrow your need for porn, right? And so, yes, so it's so key, man, to shift your focus using the words that you're saying, right? The second pillar is, I call it a willingness to feel, or in other words, you've got to stop battling your urges. And what I mean by that is, like I said earlier, that one of the main things I hear all the time, I'm on like some like forums and stuff for guys who are trying to overcome porn and stuff. And the one thing I hear all the time is people encouraging each other, saying like, dude, battle this, dude, fight it, like resist it, try distracting yourself, right? Like try watching a show, try to take your mind off of your urges, everything. That approach, what it does is, I get why it's so appealing, because we want this to be like, as men, I think we want it to be some sort of big fight that we conquer, right? We want to like climb the mountain and everything, want it to be something so big. But when we approach our urges to view porn with like this battle mentality, what I call it, all it does is it heightens the stress response in our body, makes us more stressed, which then makes us want to soothe more. And guess what? We're going to go to want to soothe, right? And it makes this idea that these urges are something so big, bad, evil, right? Like, oh my, dang it, I'm feeling an urge again. Like, all right, here we go. Let's battle this again, right? Well, honestly, the key to overcoming urges is actually learning, instead of battling with urges, is learning how to feel them, how to feel them effectively so that you can process them. And this is actually bigger than just urges. Like this is like emotional regulation 101, right? You talk about any emotion. The way to process any emotion is to actually be willing to feel it, right? The only thing worse than anger is being unwilling to feel anger, or the only thing worse than sadness is being unwilling to feel sadness, right? That's the times when we start doing things that are outside of our value system, right? If we're trying to avoid what we're feeling. It's the same with urges. If we can actually learn how to feel urges, learn how to feel uncomfortable, we can finally learn how to process them. And it's a super critical. And this is probably one of the hardest parts for clients, is because we're so used to avoiding what's uncomfortable, right? But once you learn how to
Isn't
do
it
it,
ironic too that it's somewhat ironic that a tactic to avoid something, I think a lot of people also visit porn, and you make that argument. It is an escapist activity. It's an
totally,
escapist activity. It's
yeah,
you're avoiding something. You're avoiding getting to the root, back to the first pillar. I find it very interesting and somewhat ironic that some people's advice to avoid a an escapist behavior is to effectively distract yourself and use an escapist behavior.
yeah,
So you're
yeah,
using an
totally,
escapist behavior to really, but the whole point is that that's why, and not for everybody. There's I'm sure there's different reasons people look at porn, but I do think a large part of people, and to your point, is because we're escaping something else. We don't want to deal with something else. There's
yeah.
something else that hurts, and we're trying to soothe it, like you said. And so I think that one of the worst things you could possibly do is distract yourself from that thing
Yeah,
in order to just get further down the rabbit hole of distraction. And because we the last thing we need in this life is more distraction.
100%, man. Yeah, it's such an interesting way to put it, right? We're just layering on levels of distraction that are keeping us from actually getting to the root, right? Circling back to that first pillar. And I think one of the biggest lies society has ever sold us on is that there are certain emotions and things that are good to feel and certain emotions that are bad to feel. That has been one of the most destructive lies that I think society has really sold us on. And so then instead of learning how to embrace every emotion and feeling as part of the human experience, we're stuck in this game of continually trying to avoid uncomfortable things and only be comfortable, which ironically leads to a very uncomfortable life, right? And so it's so important to make that shift. And so that's one of the biggest. So that's another three. That's one of the three keys right there. And the last one, I really believe this deeply with all my heart that overcoming porn is an identity issue. Um, the the way I see it, I don't know if you guys ever heard this story. I actually don't. It's one of those stories that I don't even know if it's true, but it's like said so many times on the internet. It's like everything that they say Abraham Lincoln quoted probably he didn't actually say. I think it's like one of
Yeah.
these things. But have you ever heard the story of Michelangelo when he was making the statue of David? This is not the Ninja Turtle. This is the artist a long time ago. And he was making the statue of David, and someone said to him, like, "Hey, how'd you do this? This is a masterpiece, right? As a work of art." And apparently, Michelangelo at one point said, I'll just paraphrase it. He said, when someone asked him, like, "How did you make this statue?" And he said, "All I did is I looked at the marble block and I saw David under the marble block. And then I just chipped away everything that wasn't David." Right? I hope it's a true story because I think it's such a cool take, right? But I firmly believe that whether it's overcoming porn or whatever, the thing that's holding you back is the issue isn't that you need to become someone else in order to quit porn. That's not the issue. The issue is you need to get back in touch with who you really are. That's the issue, right? As we go through life, things happen to us and we layer on all these unhelpful beliefs about who we are, about life, about what we're capable of. And it's overcoming porn. I talk to someone and when I talk to someone, I get really curious about, okay, what are the beliefs and the thoughts and the identities that you've nurtured around this porn use, right? Even as simple as someone saying, "I am someone who struggles with porn," right? To I am someone who is healing from porn, right? Making these like identity shifts, even in like these micro moments when they feel an urge, getting really curious about what's the belief that you're operating under. Are you operating under this belief of, "I believe my life would be better if I viewed porn right now"? Are you willing to shift that belief, right? Or quitting porn is too hard. That's a big belief, man. I talk with people that are like, "I just feel like I'll always struggle with this." And so much of this work, I think, is uncovering all of the marble block that isn't David, right? And just unloading that and not becoming, returning back to who you really are. Because who you are is a man who's strong, who's capable, who's brave, who's courageous, who knows how to do the uncomfortable things, who knows how to work hard, who knows how to show up for his family. And we're just helping people return back to that.
Dude, I love that, man. It makes me really think about how, and I'm curious what you've seen with your clients of individuals who have changed their identity, who have done this inner work to understand and how learn how to feel uncomfortable and get past this stuff. How has that impacted them in the way of then now showing up differently as a husband or showing
Yeah.
up differently as a father, right, to their children? Like, how has that impacted them once they've kind of defeated, this identity?
Yeah. What comes to mind immediately is this client of mine who had gone through years and years of pornography use, and we were working together and going through this process. And I remember one night I got a text from him, and it was a really simple text, but all he said was, "Dude, um, had a completely different experience with my family today. Um, and my son is making changes as well. And my wife said to me, um, she said, I think this is a direct result of the work that you're doing on yourself." And
It's awesome, man.
dude, it's moments like that where I gotta be careful because I'll be like in the middle, you know, with my family doing stuff and I look at my phone and I just want to like scream and throw my phone across the room with like I'm just get so pumped and amped, and like um but what happened was that he had learned how to see himself differently. He discovered who he really was. And what happened is, and I think this is what happens, and I think this is a transition point, I think, for a lot of fathers, right? Is when we change how we see ourselves and when we change how we view our own shortcomings, right? We shift from like self-blame and self-hatred and self-criticism, like what's wrong with me, to this place of self-love. Then what happens is we start to see other people's shortcomings differently. Instead of saying what's wrong with my kid, right? Or what's wrong with my spouse, we start to give the same grace and compassion to those parts of them that we give to ourselves, right? And we start to see the like, oh, that's not really them either. Just like my porn habit wasn't really who I was. What my kid is doing right now isn't really them. Or what my spouse is doing isn't really them. And you just start to see people with a different eye, man. It changes. A lot more grace, right?
Yeah, man. This is a really good transition to kind of more of the parenting side and showing up differently as a father. I've found that, obviously I haven't done the exact inner work that you're taking your clients through, but just doing some of this reflective work and figuring out and getting to the root, right, of
Yeah.
what's going on, and like why, asking myself, like, why am I responding to my child this way? Like, why am I getting angry at them all the time? Why am
Yeah.
I like just jumping at them at every spare moment? And like realizing the inner work and like the wounds that I have,
Yeah.
as a child, the father wounds that I have of my dad leaving when I was 5 years old, and like going through that process, man, and like understanding
Yeah.
more about myself has really helped me. I'm still not perfect, right? I still shout at my kids and I still jump on them,
Yeah,
but
of
like
course.
I'm getting a lot better at taking a breath, walking away, like, you know, handling my emotions better, um, because I've done that inner work. And so I think that you could probably take these same three keys of fighting pornography towards like showing up differently as a dad for your kids. I'm assuming you help with that too.
100%. Yeah, Stu, first of all, that's awesome, man. It sounds like you've been on your own journey, man, with healing
100%.
and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's so cool. And yeah, I can't stress that enough, man. Like this work that I could, one way I put it is, what we're gonna learn is gonna go so far beyond pornography. We're just using pornography as kind of the training ground right now, right? Like like this is not about stopping viewing porn, right? This is about healing wounds, man, that go deep. And this work with clients, man, it inevitably goes to other places, right? I was working with one client and he started by going, it started with, hey, I want to quit viewing pornography. And it moved to, hey, dude, I've never felt enough, man. I've never felt like I'm good enough. Or one client was like, dude, I have felt lonely and inadequate ever since I was a little kid. He's like, I started viewing porn because I think tried to like talk to my parents about how I was feeling in my emotions, and they never like they always criticized me, for like being lazy or whatever. And I found porn, and porn helped me to finally feel accepted, right? Like it always goes to other areas, man. And I just can't agree more with what you're saying.
Well, yeah, and I love that you highlight that because porn is you could replace that with a number of struggles that men have, right? Like and these three keys. I mean, no, I don't think I'm atypical in that I struggle with anger in my response with that,
Yeah.
right? As a man, and especially growing up, maybe my dad was macho. Mexican dude, like dude from Mexico, and like everything is there's no such thing as flight. It's always fight, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you do flight from a fight, then my dad would always be like, "Hey, if you get in a fight and you lose, like when you come home, I'll add to that, right?"
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
awesome. So the only
Yeah.
option is to fight and to
Perfect.
win.
Yeah. 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 Perfect.
But but it's interesting because I think a lot of us have, backgrounds that cause us to have certain emotional, undeveloped, immature emotional responses. And these three steps can really, like, I love what you said, dude. God felt anger. If you're a person of faith, then these emotions and put it in a context of the Bible, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long to see, God experience. I mean, Jesus, like he went into the temple and what did he do? He wasn't like, hey guys, please stop trading money and being corrupt here. No, dude, he went in, he flipped tables.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he had an anger response. There were
Yeah.
things that we can look at and when you highlight acknowledging it, it just changes the whole dynamic. It changes the whole dynamic. And I think there's so much power in that in any area. And then to your second point, your second primary point of being a dad, man, you don't want to pass on immaturity to your kids in any area of your life. And porn can be seen as a big area of just immaturity in your life or undeveloped, right? Like you don't want your kids to experience that. I never, if probably unrealistic, but I would love it if my kids were never exposed to, porn, or at least not that they weren't exposed to, but that they had never had a desire because we've talked through these things and be
Yeah.
like, hey, this is just an outlet. What are you really feeling?
Yeah.
And to be able to have those conversations with your kids, I think is critical. And so I love what you're saying because it goes beyond just this idea of like, oh, I just struggle with porn. I just want to stop doing that. No, dude, like what kind of dad do you want to be?
Yeah.
And is the content, I asked my daughter the other day, I was like, hey, if I look at your computer, I wasn't concerned about porn. I was concerned about her, you know, talking to her friends
Yeah.
and how she's talking. I'm like, hey, can Yaya's my mom, her grandma, can
Yeah.
Yaya look at your and everything in your computer and would you be ashamed? Like, yes or no? And she's like, yeah, I can look at my computer. I'm like, cool. Like, it's great litmus test. But ultimately, can my mom look at all the areas of my life and be like, oh, I'm proud of my son?
Mm.
Like, it's a legit question. You know what I mean? And it's just maturity. It's getting to that place. So I love that work you're doing to help dudes get beyond this idea of porn being the thing. Like, it's just a symptom, right? It's
Yeah.
just a symptom like shopping or overindulgence in any way. And you're helping them to contextualize that. And that's a beautiful thing, man. It's a huge blessing generationally.
Oh man. I mean, that's what, this idea of generations, man, that's what heals pornography use at the root too. Like it's really not a matter of if your kids are gonna be exposed to porn. Like it's just gonna happen. Long gone are the days where parents are like, man, if we work hard enough, maybe our kid will never see porn until after they leave the house, right? Like that's about as crazy now to think like, maybe if we work hard enough, we'll make sure our kid never lies. Like it's just not gonna happen. Like our kid is gonna see porn, right? And what that's such an important, like as dads, I hope we don't underestimate the power that our response has to that. I was talking with a guy the other day. He just like almost brought me to tears, man. He was just telling me about the experience of his son came to him and said, like, Dad, like I saw porn. Like some of my friends showed me. His son was like 12 or something, right? And in that moment, if we're not careful, our own insecurities, our own anxieties, can really step in, right? And we can end up being like, okay, like shut that down. Let's take away your phone, right? Like we can let our anxiety get in the way. But what he said he did is he just sat down with him. I think they were kind of laying in bed together, just kind of hanging, and he just asked him like, dude, how are you doing? Like, how'd that feel, buddy? Like, just so you know, I love you so much. And I think we completely underestimate the power of love in healing. And it sounds really fluffy, right? Like I say that to guys and some guys like roll their eyes like, yeah, love. Okay. I'm like, but like seriously, man, like you can't underestimate this. And even just with ourselves, I remember talking to a client and I was like, dude, okay. I was like, all right, let's just say someone runs up to Jesus and says, I really want to view porn right now. Like I just feel this strong urge, like I'm freaking out. I really want to view. I'm like, knowing what you know about Jesus, how would he respond, right? I'm like, would he criticize him? Would he shame him? Would he tell him to go away, right? And the guy's like, no, obviously, duh. And I was like, yeah, like what I know about knowing what I know about Jesus, what I would bet he would say is something like, well, you know what? Your best shot of not viewing porn is if you just stay close to me. So why don't you just stay close to me until the storm passes, right? And I think that's exactly how we heal both these parts of us that want to view porn instead of battling with them and fighting with them, saying, you know what? I'm so sorry that this is how you feel like this is what you feel like we need right now. And if you're willing to trust me, just stay close to me and I'll show you that we don't need porn right now. And I love you. And it's the way we change our kids, right? When they say, hey, like I viewed porn, we just say, you know what? Then just come close to me and I got you. And we're gonna get through. Like we underestimate the power that love has to heal both ourselves and our families.
Yeah, dude, I love that. We went to church yesterday. My daughter got caught in a lie.
Yeah.
Devices. She's 13, and the devices thing.
Yeah,
We're
totally.
very hands-on, and ultimately she did something. She just compromised her integrity. It wasn't a huge deal.
Yeah.
But she was emailing somebody at like 10 o'clock at night, and we're like, dude, that's just not. There's nothing about that acceptable. So we went to church in this cloud, and it just happened in the message. There was a story of a dude that was a prisoner, and he wrote his parents, and he's like, if I'm welcome to come home, I just want to see you, you know, just give me this sign.
Yeah.
And so they not only did they do that sign, but they did like 100 signs, like, yes, come home, we want
Yeah.
to see you. And my daughter sitting next to me, dude, bawling. And I think all of it was just the context of the sermon with where
Hmm.
we were at when we went to church and all of that together. Like, it makes me teary because I was crying too, because the story, I get emotional about that anyways. But then I
Yeah.
look at my daughter, and she reaches out, she holds my hand, and she's just broken down. And my point to that, and then I took that opportunity to say, hey, that no matter what you do, like, there's consequences. That is very
Yeah.
real. There's consequences, but I always love you.
Yeah.
That will never go away.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, that was like very real for me yesterday, is just say, hey, I love you no matter what.
Yeah.
There are consequences, and now we took your brand new phone away. Um, and that's just the consequence. But she received it much better because because she felt that love. And so I love how I really appreciate you highlighting that, because we as dads also have the power in that moment to speak life into that sin. And also, like you said something earlier, dude, if my kid comes to me and is like, Dad, I looked at porn, and I'm like, oh, you evil heathen child. Like, dude, look in the mirror, bro. Look in the mirror,
Right.
right?
Totally.
Like, look in the mirror, and just be a reflection of God, because it's not like my kids did something I've never done or potentially don't
Right.
struggle with, right? And so I
Right.
think there's a lot of power in that, man. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. 100%. Love that, man. That's so good.
Michael, man, your story and your messaging is encouraging. I love this. I wish we could go for another hour, but our time is coming to an end. Where can we send our listeners to get more information about everything that you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah. So, probably your one-stop shop is my LinkedIn profile. I'll send you the link to that because they're crazy enough. There's about a million Michael Andersons
Yeah,
on,
Michael
on
Anderson.
LinkedIn. My parents blessed me with a very boring name, and but also I'll send you if you don't mind putting that link in the show notes.
Yeah.
There you can DM me if you just have questions. You can book. There's a link to book a free consult with me. I also have on my featured section. There's a free 6-day online porn recovery course. It's just a way to jumpstart. It won't give you everything you need, but it goes into these three keys, these three pillars I talk about, and it's a great way to jumpstart that. And that's free. You can just access that on my LinkedIn profile.
Awesome.
That's probably their best bet.
Awesome, man. Well, like I said, this has been a really, really great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I know our listeners are going to enjoy it. So, um, man, been a blessing for us. Appreciate you.
I feel blessed to be on. Thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Guys and gals, hey, reach out to Michael Anderson, number 833 on LinkedIn. We'll put the direct source there in the show notes. And hey, if this is an issue, if this is a struggle for you, hey, let's take some action. Let's take uncommon action and go, make a change. See you.
See you.
Hey, for those of you who've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know that Dave and myself transitioned out of a 20-year career in the military, in the Navy. And there were some really big struggles in that. And I'd say that for anybody that's in a transition of changing an identity can have a really, really hard time finding a new identity and going through the struggles of figuring out what's next. We talk a lot about purpose. We talk a lot about tribe and community. And we talk a lot about mission. And those aspects of a transition are really hard to figure out. So you need a community. You need a tribe. You need to have someone in your life that's going to hold you accountable and help you grow into this new identity. That's what we do in the Kinetic Man. We have a lot of military veterans in our space that we talk through on a daily and monthly basis of how to figure out what's next, how to figure out how to continue to live with purpose, live with mission, and be incredible husbands, incredible fathers, incredible leaders in the community, and incredible businessmen. We have a ton of entrepreneurs. We have guys doing deals together, investing with each other, and growing with each other to be the best men that they can possibly be so they can show up every single day for their families and for their businesses. If that's something that sounds interesting, come join us. You can go to thekineticman.com/signup, thekineticman.com/signup, and come grow with us. See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Kinetic Man podcast. If you are growth-minded, community-focused, and willing to take uncommon action to redefine success and live an abundant life, visit our website at www.thekineticman.com to see all the ways we can connect.
And on our website, you can find more information on everything we're doing, like joining our meetup page to get the details on our webinars and our local Thursday gatherings here in Colorado. From our site, you can also find more information on and sign up for the next Kinetic Man retreat and the next house of our mastermind group. Finally, we always appreciate your love and support. Please share this episode and go rate us on your favorite podcast player of choice.
Thank you again. Now go take uncommon action.